be with you this morning. I'm grateful that we have an opportunity to jump back into our lesson, so pray you guys had a great Easter. Mine was different. I was looking forward to enjoying Easter with you. I was going to jump on the broadcast for services, and I realized I was in China. You're not going to jump on anybody's broadcasts in China.
Oh, wow.
So any live event is forbidden over there. So on the internet, and certainly YouTube and Twitter and all those wonderful things just don't exist over there. And their Google is different than our Google in that all their search is filtered. If the government doesn't want them to know it, then it doesn't get to them. So I was reminded of just how blessed of a country we live in, at least with the opportunity that we have before us to be fought for on our behalf, and also the fact that we spoke about religion to a couple of people over there, and I was interested to find out a little bit about their religion, and the people we talked to said, well, yeah, we're supposed to be Buddhist, but we really don't have any religion. I thought, how sad for 1.4 billion people. How sad. So, certainly a country that is eye-opening and wants us to kind of see things from different perspectives. So it gives you a better perspective of what we have been granted and what God has blessed us with. But not to certainly think that everything is fine in our whole world, even though it's fine in our world sometimes. This morning we want to talk a little bit about truth versus myth. Truth versus myth. So let's remind ourselves of a couple things, right? Setting the foundation, a wise person seeks advice, how we handle money affects our relationship with the Lord. Remember, God owns it all, controls it all, provides everything that we need. We are stewards, responsible for faithfully managing what God provides. We talked a lot about this subject, that is slavery. Then we talked about giving with the right attitude leads to a life of joy. Savings. We said it's very simple. Wise people save, foolish people don't. Talked about standard of living for my last week with you. Relative to spending, that we're to exercise godly wisdom when we spend God's money, because remember, it all belongs to Him. And then perspective was how we wound up. Without the right perspective, we will fail. And that is a life lesson, by the way. That's not just a money lesson. That's a life lesson. If you don't have the right perspective, you will fail. Now, you may look successful. Other people may think you're successful, that you succeeded, that you've won. But in reality, in the end, when it really matters, you will have found that you will have failed without the right perspective. The right perspective is God's perspective. It's seeing things from an eternal perspective. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Of course, the answer is implied. It doesn't profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul. And so we have now 10 principles of successful money management. We won't record all of the first 8 that we've gone over, but the last 2 we've not yet reminded ourselves of, 9 and 10. Spend as a pilgrim with an eternal perspective, not conforming to the norms of society, nor giving in to the lies of your enemy, the father of lies. Number 10, establish your own standard of living, knowing that life is short, and when you die, you will stand before God and give an account for your financial choices. And obviously for all of your choices, but since this is a financial money management, that's the ones we're talking about. All right, now, so it's time to turn a corner and move away from the principles and the scriptures in the sense that we're going to turn to the very practical. And to do that, we need to kind of deal with some truths and deal with some myths and kind of get our head on straight relative to the way we think about money now. So we've tried to establish a good foundation for all of us. We've tried to kind of set out there and say, here's how the Bible says we ought to go about it. Now, how do you put that into practice? How does it really happen in day-to-day life? But let me remind you of a couple things before we move on. So this is kind of the get ready slide, right? And so I'm going to ask you to open your mind. And here's your first fill-in for the morning. Those convinced against their blank are of the same blank still. Say again? Will. Those convinced against their will, good Brandon, are of the same what? Opinion still. Or mind, same concept, right? Those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. Okay? Thanks. So who said that? A real famous lady, Dave Ramsey's grandmother said that. He quoted her in one of his books, so we'll give her credit for that. So I thought it was a great statement. You know, if I can stand up here and just pound my fist on the pulpit and think I've convinced you, and you shake your head up and down, but if you don't choose to believe or ascend to the things we talked about, it doesn't matter. You'll hold the same opinion leaving this time together as you did when you walked in the door. So what does that mean? It means we've got to kind of open ourselves up. It's a whole potter and clay and that whole lesson, right? That God would tell us. If you want to be molded, if you want to change, then you got to be moldable. You got to kind of let yourself say, all right, I'm going to bring down the defenses. I'm going to kind of pretend I don't think I know it all, and I'm going to sit here and try to see if I can learn something. And if I can't at the end of the day, well, okay. But at least I've broken down the walls. I said I'm going to listen, and so forth. So those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. Don't be that way. So open your mind. So now get set. We now need to steady our resolve, right? Well, before we did that, I forgot another fill in the blank here, didn't I? At the end of the day, blank will do what blank want to choose to do. If blank like where blank and blank should keep thinking the way blank should be thinking. If blank wants to achieve something different, blank must start thinking different. Any ideas? I. It's all the same. It's all the same word. I. Right? So at the end of the day, I will do what I want to do. That's a true statement, whether you like to admit it or not. Okay? At the end of the day, you're going to do what you want to do. Okay? Short of somebody holding the gun to your head, you're going to do what you want to do. If I like where I am, I should keep thinking the way I've been thinking. If I want to achieve something different, I must start thinking differently. Okay? All right, so get set, steady your resolve. To avoid criticism, say blank, do blank, and be blank. To avoid criticism, say blank, do blank, and be blank. Nothing. Same, fill in, all three. Okay? To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, and guess what? Be nothing. Okay. Aristotle, great saying. So, as we move forward, the things we're going to talk about are going to cause others to criticize you, which is the way it's going to happen. Okay? You're going to take a stand if you choose to go down this financial success path, that people are going to go, well, you're just crazy. That's just stupid. Well, why would you do that? Okay? And some of those people might be family, friends, co-workers, whoever they are. You need to steady your resolve. Okay? So if you don't like criticism, then just keep doing what you're doing. Okay? Keep doing what you're doing. Nothing. At least in resolve to solving your money problem. So to avoid criticism, Aristotle told us, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. So following this plan is counterculture. If blank follow it, blank will be criticized by others. If blank bend to their criticism, blank will not be successful. I want to make them feel better. If blank and to be successful, blank must take responsibility and follow the path less traveled. All right, yeah. Okay, you're seeing a theme here, hopefully, right? Following this plan is counterculture. If I follow it, I will be criticized by others. If I bend to their criticism, I will not be successful. And this parenthetical is important. I will only make them feel better. Okay? If I am to be successful, I must take responsibility and follow the path less traveled. So remember, if we bend to the criticism of others, you aren't going to be successful. You're just going to make them feel good about whatever state of denial they're living in. Okay? You're going to go, okay, I'm not happy, and they're going to go, good, there's somebody else that's miserable with me. And so I feel better now. Okay? All right, so get ready, get set. Now it's time to get busy. It's time to do the work. Some of the most life-changing, profound truths are very what? Simple. Simple. Okay? Life is not complicated. We complicate it. Honestly. Life doesn't start out complicated. We complicate it. Okay? We take a very simple thing and make it difficult. Think of salvation. How simple can salvation be? Let's see. Believe God, go to heaven. And what do we do with it? I don't know. Over 2,000 religions are still working on leave God, go to heaven, and look what man has done with that. Some of the most profound, life-changing truths are very simple. For example, you kind of get these, right? To better understand others, I must talk blank and listen blank. Yeah, I must talk less and listen more. Pretty simple. To have money, I must spend blank and save blank. Yeah, I must spend less and save more. To lose weight, here you go, I must eat less and exercise more. Pretty simple, right? So why aren't all of you more understanding, have more money in your bank account, and have the perfect shape that you should have for your height and build?
Because we like to spend money.
Yeah, so if it's all so simple, right? If it's all so simple, why are there so many health or self-help books, financial advisors, and personal trainers?
Because it's not easy.
Okay, it's not easy. Meaning what?
It may be simple, but it's not easy.
We need help. We just do. We kind of get the head knowledge, right? We kind of get the simplicity of all of this. But just like you needed somebody to tell you about this thing called faith and Christ and believing and so forth, we kind of need a guide. Okay? We need a pastor, okay, a shepherd, somebody to guide us through these truths and help us kind of reveal them to us and show us, here's the plan and here's the steps that you walk through. So we need help with the plan, someone to help motivate me to move down that path, not do it for me. This is not inconsistent with the scripture. Remember, the scripture says, Paul said often to Timothy, remind them. Okay? He didn't say tell them for the first time, he said remind them. They know this, they just need to be reminded. Okay? Scripture says remember these things, recall, okay, bring to your recollection. So the scripture is consistent with this idea that we all need help with that plan. All right? So, let me help you. Let's talk about lessons from the Three Little Pigs.
It's pretty sad as kids, I don't think we get the lesson.
Yeah, do you realize this lesson, that most of us are focused on the lesson that we saw from Disney? Not the original story? The original story is a little more gruesome. Three Little Pigs was recorded for the first time somewhere in the 1840s, 1880s, somewhere around there, not really sure. But it begins with our title characters, right? The Three Little Pigs. And what's happened to them? You remember? Earlier.
Homeless and they have to.
Before that, how'd they get homeless?
Wolf.
Mama says, time for you Three Little Pigs to get out of the house. That's where that starts. Mama says, you guys hit the road. Time for you to grow up in life.
He said foreclosure.
Brandon?
Maybe we don't know what Mama was dealing with. That could be right. The story begins with the title characters being sent out into the world by their mother. Okay. The first little pig builds a house of straw, but a wolf blows it down and eats him. In the original story. He doesn't run off to his brother's house and get warm and comfy there. The second pig builds a house of sticks, which the wolf also blows down before eating him. Each exchange between the wolf and pig features this proverbial phrase ring, right? Little pig, let me come in. No, no, not by the hair of my chin. Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Okay, so we kind of remember that part from our childhood. The third pig, however, builds a house of bricks, and the wolf fails to blow down this particular house. However, the wolf, with full resolve, determines that he's going to get this final pig. And how does he do that? He goes down the chimney. Whereupon the surviving pig catches the wolf in a cauldron of boiling water. The pig slams the lid on it and cooks and eats the wolf in the original story. I like that story better. Okay, I don't know if you remember the Three Little Pig, the other Three Little Pig. Okay, the Disney Three Little Pigs, right? The one who builds a house of straw runs to the brother who's in the house of sticks. And then when they get their house blown down, they run to the brother with the house of bricks. And then the wolf comes, doesn't blow the house down, comes through the chimney, down into the pot, slams the thing, gets his rear end burned, up he goes, and off he goes off into the distance and happily live ever after. But that is the Disney version of the tale. It's not close to reality like the first version of the tale is. People who build straw and stick houses die. Look at what happens when a typhoon comes. That's the reality of life, not the Disney version. Okay? And trust me, if you don't eat the wolf, he will eat you. Okay? He will. That's how life works. Okay? Lessons from the Three Little Pigs. The wolf is always coming. Always. 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 Okay? While you're in this planet, housed in this temple of flesh, you can always count on the wolf coming your way. So what do we learn from the Three Little Pigs relative to our finances?
Always something to come up.
Okay, something's always going to happen. So we should what? Be prepared. Yeah, doing something using the raw materials, taking the easy way out. If you look at the original kind of characterizations and some of the original art that went with these books that were originally published, the two little brothers who built the straw and the stick house were kind of brought across to you as just kind of nonsensical, frivolous, playing, not really intent, not really paying much attention, just wanting to get a house up so they could move on and just having a good time, because now all of a sudden they're outside mama's apron strings, they don't have to worry about anything anymore. So hey, we can do our own thing. So let's just get to the fun part. Whereas the third little pig said, no, we need to really prepare for the future. And we need, so he is shown as somebody who puts his, nose to the grindstone and gets busy and works and does the diligent effort and spends the time that needs to be spent to really protect himself and think about the future. So doing something using the wrong materials, taking the easy way out, does not work. End of discussion. I offer you lottery tickets. Lottery tickets. You know what lottery tickets are? They're a tax on the poor. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, they're a tax on the poor. Because who plays lottery more than any other socioeconomic group? The poor and destitute. Okay, people who cannot afford to be playing the lottery play the lottery. And where does that money go? Back into the cauldrons of the government or somebody else like the government. It's a tax. It's plain simple. It's a creative tax, I'll give them that. It's a tax. Okay. And it's one that people voluntarily will pay.
Yeah.
Because why? Because there's 1 in 785 million chance I could win something greater than $25. It's a good odds. It's a sound investment. So it's time, huh? Yes, it could. The chances are 1 in 785 million.
Prescott, I think they relate it and say your odds of being struck by lightning 3 times are higher or better than winning the lottery.
So if
there
you've
you
been
go.
struck by lightning 3 times, play the lottery.
Then go play the
No, if you've been struck by lightning 3 times, stay out of the lightning storm.
And make sure you have your will taken care of.
So it's time to start building your financial success. It starts with the right foundation, which you've been provided, right? That was the first set of 10 lessons. It cannot be built out of sticks or straw, nor can it be built in haste. It requires the right materials, the right methods, or you will not endure the storms that will come. Pure, plain and simple. You just won't. A storm will come and will blow your house down. Okay? Now, how do I know that? This has happened. Okay? Been there, done that. Okay? How did you weather that storm? That's where that saying comes from. Not so well. Not so well. So what does your financial house look like? But maybe more importantly, what kind of financial house do you want to have? So maybe we're all living in a straw house, or maybe you've moved up to the big neighborhood and you're living in a stick house. But our goal is that brick-built house. Remember, your future plans must withstand good and bad economic times. Why? Because bad economic times will come. Right up to the run-up of 2008 and 9, we've been living in this great, wonderful layer of prosperity that we hadn't seen in our nation ever. But what happened? It burst. Every bubble bursts. Serious. Every bubble bursts. Every bubble bursts. Okay? All you have to do is go back and look at history and see how many bubbles were created and how often they burst. A new one's created and it bursts. A new one's created and it bursts. What can you count on financially? Bad economic times. And if not globally, certainly regionally. And if not regionally, definitely personally. You're not guaranteed the job you have. You're not guaranteed the help you have. You're guaranteed neither one of those things. And both of those things have the most significant impact on your financial ability to thrive. I don't want to be there. Okay. What's the number one cause of money problems in people's lives today? Credit cards, overspending, what? Huh? Oh, you said that. What? Not planning. Not planning? The number one problem in people's lives today is you. Okay? It's us. It's themselves. However you want to fill in that blank. You are the problem with your money.
Is that you or me?
Yes, you. So you fill in the blank like this. I am the problem with my money. Okay? Now that's not something we like to say. And even if you kind of feel like, well, I'm kind of doing okay, so why is there a problem? We'll talk about that in a minute. But nonetheless, if there's a problem, you're it. Okay? Now, are there other circumstances that come into play that we don't have control over, like the health that we talked about? Yes. Other circumstances we just can't imagine will come our way? Yes. But it's being prepared for those circumstances. Now, sometimes you don't get a chance to prepare too quickly, because maybe they hit you early out of the block. But that still makes it your problem. And how you handle the problem is up to you. Okay, so maybe you might not have been the cause, but how you deal with it is what matters. It's not the house you have today, it's the house you're building towards. So, winning at money today. Most things break down, if you know Pareto's law, into the 80-20 rule. Okay? 80%, 20%. That's how most of life breaks down. How do I know that? It just works. 80% of the people, okay, do 20% of the work. What's that mean? The opposite. 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work. Look around. Go to work. Look at government. Church. I'm not the treasurer, but I bet you this holds out pretty true. 80% of the people give 20% of the amount. 20% of the people give 80% of the amount. Pretty sure that's true, because I've been a church treasurer in the past. And it was true back then. 80% of your problems come from 20% of your workers, people, students, whatever. Teacher will tell you that. Just 2 or 3 kids. It's just 80% of my problems come from those 2. That's right. They do. They do. So winning at money today is 20% what and 80% what? What's 20%? Education. Okay, it's having the knowledge you need. So what's the 80%? It's behavior. It's how you behave with your money. So winning at money today is 20% knowledge, education, or 80% behavior. So that next fill in the blank is knowing what to do is not difficult. Knowing what to do is not difficult. What's the last word in that blank? Doing it is. Right? We talked about that a minute ago. You've got the head knowledge. It's why we need trainers. It's why we need financial advisors. It's why we need the self-help book. Somebody kind of go, I get it, but can you just kind of boil this down and put it in a plan for me? Okay? Because it just seems so confusing.
Do the work. Yeah.
Hmm?
Do the work, make a plan for me.
Basically. But the good news is the plan's done. It's just following. So this behavior problem, frankly, is why many who started this class, look around, most of them are gone, will fail. Because they're unwilling to modify their behavior. I knew when we first saw the auditorium full, it's like, this isn't going to last. These people don't have the tenacity and the persistence to stick it out. Why do I know that? That's just life. And I've just been through this stuff enough. And I've gone through it a lot. Okay? But finally, by pressing through it, I see the benefits. And so my job is to convince and convey the fact that there are benefits to be had on the other side. But that's why most who start will fail. Okay? When do most jobs fail? How far along in their completion are they? Somewhere around 80 to 85% is where most people give up. They've done 80 to 85%, and that goes kind of across the board to any kind of project. They kind of just walk away. It's too hard, too much, too long, too difficult, whatever the case may be, and they walk away. This next fill in the blank. Those that fail are unwilling to blank pleasure to achieve a blank result. Those who fail are willing to delay pleasure to achieve a greater result. See, they'd rather stay in bed an extra hour on Sunday morning. Let's just be honest. Okay? I'm unwilling to delay the pleasure of sleeping in. I'm going to sleep in a little longer. I'll just catch morning services. I'll get my money sometime. I got plenty. We call this immaturity. And we call it what it is. It's time we grow up. It's time we realize this. Your first and hardest step is to identify and acknowledge the biggest problem with your money. It's you. So repeat this. I am responsible for where I am financially. I am responsible for where I am financially. I am responsible for making it better. I am responsible for making it better. Okay? Doesn't that feel good? No, not necessarily. Doesn't feel good at all. Because this isn't meant to make you feel good. Okay? This is meant to help you understand where responsibility lies. It's not my job to get your financial house in order. It's not the government's job to get your financial house in order. It's not the church's job to get your financial house in order. It's not your parents' job, children, to get your financial house in order. Okay? Children, it's not your job to get your parents' financial house in order. Also, as you grow up, that sometimes becomes a problem. It's difficult because, especially in relationships, we care for don't we? And so we want to help. So remember we talked about the difference of helping and enabling in times past? So, identifying the biggest problem, we have done so. You are it. I am it. I am the problem with my money. I am responsible for where I am financially. Nobody else. I'm responsible for making it better. Nobody else. So, let's face the biggest obstacle now. Okay? The plan we're proposing to you, that we're going to share with you in the next few weeks, will work. Unless you don't. If you just read the plan, stuff it in your drawer, and think that somehow magically everything's going to happen because you read a plan, kidding yourself. What we need to do is reset our spending habits. Okay? It's kind of like time to hit the reset button, right? And start all over again. Okay, I don't even know if they have these on computers anymore. Do you remember when computers first came out? It's like, when in doubt, hit that red button. Okay, just stop, they quit working, I don't know. Hit the red button. That was, you call up the guy who you're paying $50 an hour to, and he goes, hit the red button. All right. All right, we're working again. Hit the red button. And sometimes we need to hit the red button on what we do and how we behave. And that's what we want to talk about. And the way to do that is what these folks pictured have learned. It's called focus and intensity. It's those two things brought together. Focus isn't enough, because you can focus on something and do nothing about it. Or just kind of lackadaisically take it through your life, even though you're quote unquote looking at it. It's about this intensity, right? It's about the fact that not only do you see it, but you don't see anything else. Okay? Now again, remember we're talking within the scope of financial management here. We're not talking about the whole life. But as I look at my finances, it's seeing the end goal. It's seeing what I want to achieve. It's not getting distracted by current day's pleasures in sacrifice for future greater gain. So focus and intensity. A couple animals with focus and intensity. Okay? That dog sees nothing else on the beach except that ball. And we'll get it. That dog will get that ball. If he doesn't get it in the air, he will get it because he is focused. That eagle, I don't know what it's looking at. I just hope it ain't me. Okay? It's focused, it's intense, and has vision and sees what it's focused on. So, here's what it's going to take. Here's your fill in the blank. It's going to take focused intensity. Focused intensity. Life and death-like intensity, by the way, to reset your money spending patterns. Because you have all built up a pattern. Some are okay, some aren't horribly bad, okay? Some of you have got some things right. Maybe some of you have many things right, and that's good. Okay? But still, if we want to achieve the ultimate goal, the ultimate place, we want to be, it's still going to take a bit of a shift, a bit of a reset. So focused intensity, life and death-like intensity to reset your money spending patterns is what it's going to take to be successful. Okay? So which group are you in? You fall into one of three groups. Here they are. I've achieved success. Financially we're talking about now. Biblically, financial. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. So always when I talk about finances in the context of this class, the given is that we're basing all of that on the foundations we've already talked about. So I don't have to keep going back and saying and qualifying and doing all that stuff. So when we talk about financial success, we're talking about it biblically here. Okay? So I have achieved success. So all these must apply. You can go down and say, I'm debt-free. Okay? With no debt. Ooh, I have plenty of savings. Right? We'll talk about what plenty is at some point in time. But I have plenty of savings. And you'll know what it is, by the way, if you know you can check that. My retirement is covered. Okay? I could lose my job and not miss a beat. And I'm giving away much of my income. That's financial success, according to Scriptures. How many of you there? Very few. Very, very few. But few do make it. And more are making it. I've achieved success, right? That's those things. Number two, I'm nowhere near success. Okay? I'm in debt. Or I have little or no retirement. Or I have little or no savings. Losing my job, that hurt bad. Can't give as much help as I'd like to. You can just check one of those things. You're not yet near success. Here's the third group. Well, I may not be fully successful, but I'm okay. And I'm good enough. And I bet if I asked you all to describe yourself, you'd probably fit into that third category. Okay? That's probably where you'd like yourself to be. Well, yeah, I'm not doing great, but I'm okay. Everything will be fine. We'll be fine. We're doing okay. It's all going to work out. Plenty of time. People who are in group 2 or 3, okay, here you fill in. People in group 2 or 3 and believe everything will be fine. Or what? Living in denial. Living in denial. And are in danger of financial failure.
There's already people reading ahead with a lot of thoughts coming out right now.
That's right, some of it.
Strategic blank.
That was intentional.
Yeah,
So,
I do that.
all right, so our next little blank. Most need to have the blank smacked out of them before making required changes. Denial, I'll give it to you before you know.
How do you work like that?
Most people have to have the denial smacked out of them before they make required changes. See, unfortunately for some, but actually very fortunately, they financially hit rock bottom. Something dramatic happens in their life. They lose a job. They have a big health problem. Something goes on and they just get smacked with reality. And they have to do something. They're forced to do something about it. They can't choose not to do something about it. But you know what? They do something about it because they have to. The problem are the complacent folks who live in the middle, where most of us reside, going, I'll get by, everything's okay, it's going to work out. Someday the government's going to bail me out on Social Security. That's going to be taken care of. I'm pretty sure it'll be okay. That's living in denial. That's the dangerous place to live. Believing that you're just going to get by, everything's going to be fine. Now, can you just get by, eke out a living, get to the end of your life, die, and still go to heaven? Yes. But is that what Christ wants you to do? No, it's not. It's absolutely positive no. So, most people have to have the denial smacked out of them because they're living in it. And sometimes we think we're not because we are okay, just getting by. 70%, that's the blank, 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 70%. 7 out of 10 of us are living paycheck to paycheck. Meaning if I missed one of those things, it would hurt. That is not a good position to be in. And those of you in that position know that. Okay? So I'm not telling you something you don't know, but we're trying to bring ourselves back to reality so we can start to move forward and just realize, yeah, I need to do something. I need to change. I need to hit the reset button. Things have got to be different if I'm going to achieve that debt-freeness, plenty of savings, retirement covered, handle a job loss, giving away my income. If that's what the Bible says I should be striving for, I'm going to need to hit the reset button. Blank is not the abundant life. What are we going to say there? Okay, just fine, getting by is not the abundant life. That's not it. Okay? See, Christ came and brought us life. But that sentence didn't end there. Because if he just ended there, we could get the impression, well, he's just talking about this idea of eternity and living forever. But he brought us the abundant life. Okay? And what does that mean? Again, it doesn't mean I'm rich. Okay? It doesn't mean I have a huge bank account to consume for myself. That's not what he meant. He says you've learned how to live with everything I give you and pass it through your hands and minister to others so that you can increase your bank account in heaven. Remember that lesson? Okay? So okay is not the abundant life. Here you go. Last fill in for page 2. Good enough is the biggest enemy of best. We say this in business a lot. Okay? A lot of companies are good companies, but they're never going to be a great company because they got satisfied with being good enough. Things are just good enough. We're okay. We're getting by. Everything's fine. It'll all work out. That's not where God wants you. That's not where he wants you. Financially. And pretty much in every other area of life. You need to know where you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. Okay? Now some of you are just starting to find out where you are. Okay? That's a good thing. You spent last month, hopefully, if you didn't do it, go back and finish it. Spent last month tracking every one of your expenditures. And some of you, like, just kind of guessed or surprised by some of the things you saw. Okay? So you're starting to see where you are. You need to know where you're going. We've tried to set that goal out there for you. We'll explain it even more in detail as we move forward. But most importantly, how you're going to get there. And that's what we'll talk about in some great length as we move forward. So, It's time to step out of what? The state of denial. Okay? I was going to put Robin Williams' quote in here. Denial is not a river in Egypt. Right? But the biggest obstacle most of us face is this fact we're living in this state of denial. I'm okay. No problem. We'll be by. Everything's fine. It's not okay if you can't say you're debt free. You have savings in the bank to cover an emergency. You could lose your job and not panic. You are giving and caring for others, and you have retirement and college taken care of. You can say all those things, then you can get up and leave. You can get up and leave. Or you can get up here and help us. All right, so let's do some myth busting. Let's do some myth busting. What's a myth? An invented story, idea, or concept. I love this next definition of a myth. A false collective belief. A false collective belief. Something that a group of some size and people collectively determined to believe. Right? A myth. What happens when something is told loud enough, long enough, and frequently enough?
You believe it.
It becomes a truth. It becomes a truth. Abortion is not murder. It's a choice. It's a woman's right. And that must be true because the law says it's true. Marriage is not between a man and a woman. It's for any gender combination you'd like. How do we know? Because there's laws that say so. There are no absolutes. Truth is relative to each individual set of morals. The Bible, of course, establishes facts that are clearly counter to these myths. All three of those things I mentioned are myths. Saying something loud enough, long enough, often enough does not make it true, even if the masses believe it to be so. How long ago was it when we thought the world was flat? Okay, did the world magically turn from flat to a globe? No. People were enlightened, were brought knowledge, and realized it, and smacked right in the face with the reality that it can't be flat, or we would have sailed off of it and not made it all the way around. Okay. So here's your first myth we're going to deal with. Debt is a tool used to create prosperity. This is pretty much what society says. If you're going to get ahead, you have to use other people's money. Okay, find a way to leverage your little bit and turn it into a lot. Okay? I can leverage my little bit of down payment and get a lot of car. I can leverage my little bit of down payment and get a big house. Okay? I can leverage no cash down and get this furniture today. Sounds good, right? Getting just a little bit to get a whole lot, well, who wouldn't buy into that? Anybody that can do math wouldn't buy into that. Okay? And we've all evidently forgotten how to do math. Okay? How much are you paying for your house? Oh, well, I pay $130,000 for my house. No, you're paying about $350,000 for your house. Get real about what you paid your house, what the amount you paid your house was. So debt is a tool used to create prosperity. That's a myth. We'll spend some time dealing with it a little bit here. Let me give you some facts. Before we do that, I forgot about an example I'm going to show you. And we've all been through this, especially if you have kids. You have that little 2-year-old, you know, we call them terrible twos for a reason. You have that little 2-year-old, and you're in the store, and they're, what? I want it! Mommy, I want it! Mommy, I want it! Mommy, mine! Mommy, I want it! I want it now! Now, I want it! I want it now! Now, I want it! I want it! I want it now! You can't have it. I want it! I want it! I want it now! I want it now! You aren't going to get it. Come on! I want it! Please let me have it! And the kid screams and just it starts to escalate until what happens?
He gets it.
They get swatted outside.
One of two things, right?
You walk out.
They get dragged out the store and
The parent
swatted.
becomes a parent. Okay? Parent steps up and acts like a parent, or the parent acts like a kid and goes, oh, well, here you go.
Be quiet.
Whatever it takes to shut you up. Okay?
That's how it gets stuff okay.
So that red face, clenched face yells, I want it, I want it, I want it, and I want it And we all understand that because many of us never grew out of it. Many of us never quit being that red-faced 2-year-old who said, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it now.
Sure.
So debt is what happens when we, here you go, obtain the I want it's. Okay? Debt is what happens when we obtain the I want it's before we can afford them. Okay? That's debt. That's a practical definition of debt. It brings it home to where it belongs. It puts you responsible for your debt. You're saying, I am willing to be a slave to somebody else so I can have it and I can have it now. Okay? Can you imagine a car bought without a payment? When was the last time that was done? A house purchased without a mortgage? Well, that's unheard of. A student completing college without a loan? You must be beside yourself. Those are myths. We believe the only way to get a house is you got to go into hock. The only way to get a car is to go into debt. The only way to get education is a student loan. And none of those things are true. They're difficult, but they're not true. They're not true. $850 billion in credit card debt is what the United States currently has. The households, that's just credit card debt. Okay? It's not student loan debt, it's not mortgage debt. But we as a collective society, the adults who have credit card debt, are in debt $850 billion with a B, billion dollars. That equates to over $15,000 for anybody who holds a credit card that has any debt on it. Okay, if you have debt on a credit card, you're actually in the average, and the average is $15,257. I don't know where you sit, but I can tell you for a long part of my life, I was above that number. And I'll tell you way above it. I'm happy about that, but if we're going to be honest with each other, that's the fact. So, why do people go into debt to buy stuff? Well, in part because we are immature. I want it now. In part because we've been taught, told, and shown that going into debt, that's just how it's done. Well, that's the way you get a house, it's the way you get a car, it's the way you get an education, it's just the way it's done. Okay? You read the established credit. What?
That's the way you establish credit.
Of course, and we all have to establish credit.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. But just an aside, since Clark brought that up. Do you know your credit score, how it's calculated? It's all about debt. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's all about debt. Okay? Credit score is about debt. You don't have a credit score, you don't have debt. Okay? We'll talk about how you want to be not having a low credit score. You want no credit score. Okay? You want them to pull up your FICO, okay? And they'll go, there isn't one. That's what you want. That's your goal financially in life. Okay? Because you don't need debt. You don't want a high credit score. Because that says what? The higher the credit score, you love debt. That's what that says. It says you're married to debt and you do it well. Okay? You don't want a high credit score. You don't want a low one. You don't want one. Let me tell you a story. A group of monkeys was locked into a room with a pole at the center. Some luscious ripe bananas were placed at the top of the pole. When a monkey would begin to climb the pole, the experimenters would knock him off with a blast of water from the fire hose. Each time a monkey would climb, off he'd go, until all the monkeys had been knocked off repeatedly, thus learning that climbing was hopeless. The experimenters then observed that the other primates would pull down any monkey trying to climb. They replaced a single monkey with one who didn't know the system. As soon as a new guy tried to climb, the other guys would pull him down and punish him for trying. One by one, each monkey was replaced, and the scene repeated until there were no monkeys left in the room that had experienced the fire hose. Still, none of the new guys were allowed to climb. The other monkeys pulled them down. Not one monkey in the room knew why, but none were allowed to get the bananas. Not one. Let me read a little excerpt out of Dave Ramsey's book. We aren't monkeys, but sometimes we exhibit behavior that seems rather chimp-like. We don't even remember why. We just know that debt is needed to win. So when a loved one decides to get a money makeover, change their life, we laugh, get angry, and pull them down. We Americans are like the last set of monkeys. With rolled eyes, we spout the pat lines associated with the myth as if anyone not wanting to have debt is unintelligent. That's the way you get by. That person must be a simpleton, a fanatic, or worse of all, uneducated in finance. And he asks this question, then why are so many finance professors broke? I think a broke finance professor is like a shop teacher with missing fingers. So, sometimes we act like these monkeys. You know, I just don't see anything, I don't hear anything, etc., right? If you don't change your view regarding debt, you're going to have problems. Let me wrap this up this morning because we're running late. So truth number one, if you have money trouble, you're the problem with your money, right? Truth number two, living in denial about your finances is the largest obstacle you've got to overcome. That's it. Myth number one, debt is a tool to create prosperity. We're going to spend next week going through this a little bit more in detail and talking about some of the specific things why we're going to debunk this myth and why debt is not a tool to create prosperity. But we'll leave you with Mark 8:36, which says, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Have a great morning.